can post this. Awesome, thank you, Zoom. So this will be available on Schoology as a refresher reference for you all, but also in the event that I say something that doesn't make sense, or I say something that's in contradiction to what's in the slideshow, by all means, feel free to ask me questions. Cool. So again, a lot of things I want to go over, and I'm going to say probably the first part is me just kind of talking about departmental updates, announcements that I guess is specific to English teachers, but by all means, if other teachers on the call like these kind of opportunities, by all means, feel free to search them out. And eventually then I'll talk about what today, which is depth and complexity. That is something I came across a couple of years ago that I really wanted to share with teachers, but with what's been happening for the past year and a half, it just wasn't like a hot item to share. But I thought now that we're going back to the classroom, so far it seems like that's the game plan of being in person. I thought, well, let me introduce this to teachers, and if it's something that seems to jive with you and it seems to work, then by all means, take the idea and then make it shine in the class. Quick warm up though, to kind of get our brains ready for today, is this question. And if I can get probably 3, 4, 5 teachers to just chime in, that'd be pretty helpful. So warm up for today is, what is one innovation, transformation, or discovery that you have picked up as a result of the pandemic that you will continue in your teaching and learning? So think about that. What is one innovation, transformation, or discovery that you've picked up during the pandemic year that you're going to continue to do when you're teaching and learning in this new school year? And this can range from some kind of a classroom thing you did online last year that you think you might want to bring into the classroom, some self-care thing. It's pretty wide open. For me, I think the one discovery of myself is really stretching out my patience, really. I admitting I'm not really tech savvy, and to be on the screen for so much has kind of like trained my tolerance, but it's also a point of which I can say that I've gotten better at being able to navigate online tools. Am I near perfect? No, but I want to believe that despite the challenges of the pandemic, I think the discovery I made about myself is my tolerance being better and my patience being better with technology tools and whatnot. And again, yeah, sorry, thank you for the chat box. If you have things you want to put in the chat box, that's fine too. Natasha says, order books, read together and let them keep the copy. Yeah, okay, so regarding to one of your classes, if you decide to teach a certain book, order it, give it to the students and say, hey, just keep it, might give to you. So yeah, that's something you can do you can bring with you to the new school year. Thanks so much, Natasha. Yeah.
I learned about investing during the pandemic. So something that I'm continuing to learn more about, and also just, kind of building on my financial literacy. Yeah.
For sure. Yeah. Awesome. Finance, investments, good stuff to know. And for sure, you could bring with you to the classroom, and probably, really kind of even show students, like, you don't have to be an econ teacher, but if there's something you want to show them that is like a life skill thing, I mean, that's pretty helpful for them to know. So yeah, thank you so much, Abida. Can I get one more person?
Hi, Mario.
Hey, what's up? How are you?
Good. So for me, it was, I know Kikai had gave us like a tool, like a question of the day thing. And that was just a great way just to kind of, especially on Mondays, get students loosened up, like getting them, involved. I usually could get, at least one answer from everybody. So that was just something that I think I will definitely take with me into the classroom.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing. That's a great resource. And hearing you talk, I I'm reminded another discovery. I'll just kind of like throw it in really quick here. Is for the most part before the pandemic, I think we probably all had a sense of our students like home lives in terms of what goes on there, who lives there, is it a family that is comprised of 5 people in a small apartment? Are the people that go in and out a lot? But I think really having to teach through the pandemic and being on Zoom with students and with the camera feature, you can kind of like learn more about the students that, at least for me, has added more to a deeper understanding of really what they're going through. So that's, I think, another discovery I can bring into the classroom that haven't really gotten to know them, I think, even better online, has allowed me to be even more empathetic with what's going on, and also to think of that and be conscious of that when I'm teaching and designing course content. Jesse says he wants to try and experiment more with Jamboard and take that into the classroom. Yeah, Jamboard's really cool. Sticky notes, type it in. It's all colorful, really nice stuff. And then Drew Dillon here has shared, he's found this blackout poetry maker online, and he's gonna for sure use it again in person. And he's provided a link for us. Thank you, Drew, for that resource. And then Matt says, I'm on Jamboard as well. Cool, cool. Yeah, and think about it, like what's something you'll bring in to the classroom that you can make work as well. And really, hopefully, at least for me, that if we're going to be in person, whether we're trying to keep it 3 feet away from students or 6, whatever your classrooms can allow, because every classroom is very different and every site's different. Hopefully that we're able to get through. And then hopefully, as I was talking to my colleague Roberto about implementing like sanitation safety protocols at the site, so that we're doing our best to be safe and to be comfortable with the jobs we do. Awesome. So really quick, chat box, hold on. Sir, him to a Jamboard collaboration with folks and with Crehan, with Matt this summer, awesome. And then Matt says he wants to spend more time on editing work, both peer and me editing. Cool, yeah, awesome. Thank you so much. So as that, God, why does it do that? There we go. So I try to share these opportunities with teachers because I really feel that part of one's growth as an educator is really kind of going out there and see what is available for you. So it's something I brought up in the past. It might have interested some teachers. It might not have interested some teachers, but I want to just kind of stress again, and I'll probably say it again next time we meet, is to consider joining the NCTE, which is a national organization for teachers of English. It's been around since 1911, over 250,000 members, and pretty much it's a yearly gathering of teachers of elementary levels, middle school, high school, and college professors that really just get together and talk about writing, reading, language, and all the beautiful ideas meshing together. And if it's something that, at least for me, when I've gone out there, I come back rejuvenated with ideas. And in fact, one thing I'll share with you today is from having gone to some other PD 2 years ago. So why join? To get mileage out of this organization. You get to meet and you get to network with other teachers. And really, I just feel like it just kind of helps people to go above and beyond. The conference is coming up this November, and the theme is equity, justice, and anti-racist teaching. And they already have their panel selected. And it seems like this time it's going to be both in person and virtual. So if in the event that this does interest you, and it's going to be in Louisville, Kentucky, and you don't want to fly out there because of safety concerns, the option is you can be in the conference through a virtual format. If you want to learn more, this slideshow, I believe, is on Schoology, but not, I'll put it on there. But click on the link, check out the information. And at some point, they'll have out their panel proposal titles and pretty, I think for me, awesome information to just see like what other teachers are doing in the classrooms and see what you can learn from that and bring with you to your class. Another thing that's local here that if you can do the NCTE, which it's a little more costly, and for that, for sure, ask for some funds from the school to help cover for that, is this other local chapter called the California Association for Teachers of English, otherwise known as CATE. And it's the local chapter, so it's like the grandkid of NCTE that meets in California every year in different parts of California. What's really cool about this is they're going to have their conference in Long Beach this upcoming February. And again, if you like the idea, maybe you want to consider presenting, maybe some of you all want to get together, or if you want like my help with this, I would really suggest you should, just because again, you're just gonna like learn about your abilities as a teacher, as a presenter, you get to meet other teachers. And this, I'm pretty sure the school can pay for pretty much everything, the registration for the conference, the parking. So I'm gonna throw it out there. For more info, click on that link. But of course, feel free to ask me or Valencia or hopefully Elvira, which I just throw their names out there, since I know we presented 2 years ago, and overall, like something that can help just boost your confidence as an educator. Questions so far about these conferences or any other conferences that you know of that are upcoming that we could help promote? No? Okay, cool. Moving on. So now it's departmental happening. So what's happening with the English department? And this part, I don't want to spend too much time on it, but just kind of quickly gloss over things we've been doing, things that we could continue to do, things that maybe we don't want to do anymore. On the slideshow, you can see here that we have our department newsletter that is what we do, but also looking to get ideas from teachers in terms of what kind of content could go on a letter, and also to see if anybody will be interested to kind of like be part or take some lead into the newsletter that pretty much oversees the content and also helps to put it out for the entire network to read. So that's something that you can maybe consider. We have our inaugural book that we put out 2 years ago, in our own words, which I have a bunch of copies. And because of the pandemic, these really didn't make it out to teachers, but that was the hope. So if you would like a set for your class, let me know. If you want 10 copies or 20, I have really a bunch. Let me know, send me an email, I can get it out to you. And maybe you want to share this with your students, because we could do a volume 3 for our youth if you want to be part of getting students to write poems, short stories, anything that's creative with language, and then put it together into submission for me to put on a book. So we have books that we get digitized. If you have a book in mind that you want to digitize, let me know. I can try to get that out of the way and preferably before you begin classes in a matter of weeks. I'm working on the calendar for the department that really just shows what's going to happen in terms of English opportunities, ELA, training sessions, upcoming events with writers, that it's like 10% done. So I'm actually embarrassed to show it. So I'll save that for later. But I do know I'm working on a calendar to kind of give people the heads up what's happening. And it's a calendar that will give you the chance to also add events so that we all are aware of these opportunities happening outside of our network. And also, I want to know what you guys want to do. Like what ideas, what vision do you want to try out for the school year? Okay, so all this, there will be a Google form that'll come to you probably by Friday. That's going to ask for feedback on all these 5 bullet points. And then from there, I'll use that information to then do next steps. Okay. All right. So here we go. Okay, so now we're going to segue to depth and complexity. And I'll probably spend roughly maybe 20 minutes, maybe 30, on introducing this to teachers and hopefully do like a quick demo lesson of how this works. And then kind of show you like what I did in the past, along with sharing resources that I use in the classroom in the event that you think this could be something you might want to use in your classrooms. what's really wonderful about this is it's not just like an English teacher resource. This can be used by social studies teachers as well as science teachers, and I want to say even math teachers. And so really quick in the chat box, has anybody ever heard of depth and complexity or know what this is, what it means? Okay, do you want to ask a question, Jesse, or just saying, yeah, I heard of it?
These are the little icons that you gave me, right?
Yeah.
When I was first starting here.
Yeah,
those
like
were
a billion years
awesome
ago.
tools.
Cool.
Yeah, those
So,
are awesome tools.
Awesome. Thank you. And if it's okay, maybe Jesse, I'll just kind of on the spot ask for your feedback throughout the presentation. But it looks like no one else has heard of it, and that's okay.
Yeah.
Oh, chat box.
So from what I remember, there were these icons that you could like have on display in your classroom, and then based on any text that you have, selected for the classroom, you can be like, okay, right now we're going to look at, I can't remember the name, I can't remember the specific topics of them, but like say, you had a magnet and you put it on the whiteboard. And it's like, all right, we're going to look through for these 3 elements in this text, specifically, what is it, contextualization or vocabulary or something like that. Like there were specific like things you were going to look for in this text that hit on different levels, and you could even assign different students different parts of based on the icon that you give them. Like you're going to comb this text for context clues, you're going to comb it for vocabulary. Yeah, what were the topics though? I don't have them on me anymore. They're in my storage, and
That's
I wish
okay.
I had them to reference.
No worries. I will share the icons with everyone, and then also kind of I have like the actual thing here in my hand to kind of show you what these things look like. So yeah, so we'll get to that. But yeah, Jesse's correct. It's pretty much the use of symbols to create a common ground of learning for students in the classroom when it involves teaching reading. And by having this common ground, it gives students the ability to talk about the content, but from their level. So that if you're teaching this short story or a chapter from some kind of history, book or something, you can use these to help students have some kind of a lens in which to look for in a text as you're reading. Before I go into the icons, I was hoping that maybe a few teachers here can answer any of these questions here to help us get us some kind of context for reading. And the questions are, what do you take into consideration when you select a text to teach? So like when you plan your classes, what do you take into account when you pick that book that you want to teach? Or if it's like a unit of stories, what is it that you have to consider? Or the next question is, what makes a text complex to teach? So in your experience, what have you found?
Sorry, my dog.
That's okay. And what is the pushback that students give when you're trying to teach a text that maybe is asking to challenge their thinking? The other question is, what struggles or difficulties do you notice students encounter with the text that you teach? Or what topics or themes do you often like to teach in classrooms? And the last question is, how do you go deep into a text that's beyond surface level reading? So I'm hoping that just one of these questions kind of like speaks to you, and maybe you can just kind of share out your thoughts, either out loud or you can use a chat box. Oh, that's okay, Jesse, no worries.
Hey, Mario, how's it going? And hello, everyone.
Good, Joey. Always good to see you.
So for me, it's the author always almost comes first. Ideally, it's a woman of color, just because like white males have dominated, literature and the canon. So, and then males next, right? So like if we think of authors, like we have, Blessing Ultima with Luis Rodriguez, great authors, right? But at the same time, they're male-dominated canons, right? So that's the first part of it, and then the second is like the content, like what's the story about? Is it going to be engaging the students? But probably even before that is the language. Is the language accessible, right? Is it going to be something that they can read and understand so that we can have in-depth conversations later on and then really take that book to the next level? Or is it going to be just, what's that word I'm looking for? Like inaccessible.
Mhm.
So if they don't understand it, they're not going to enjoy it. So just like, because part of like, for me, English is just the more the student reads, it's just exercising a different muscle of their brain. So
Mhm.
it'll open up access to other texts, whether it's like an employment agreement or, a contract to get a car or sign a lease, whatever, right? Like all the basic stuff. So that's just some of what I take into mind. And then interest, like, do I have a personal interest in it as well? Like if I'm bored and I don't want to teach the book, that no matter how great it is and how much students want to read it, like I'm not going to be able to create content that's going to be meaningful for the students because I'm just not going to feel it.
Yeah, right on, right on. Yeah, thank you, Joey. Anyone else?
So maybe answer question number one. What do you take into consideration when selecting a text to teach? I take into consideration my students' interests. I have introduced, some short stories and different topics, but I definitely do take into consideration their interests. I just find that they're more engaging and they're more willing to participate if it's a topic that they're interested in.
Yeah, thank you. And I think it's something that I think we have done, or maybe we still do, where we think, whoa, there's this book I've read, 10 years ago, and it moved me. I'm going to teach it because we're thinking about our experience with the text, as opposed to from the point of view of a student, like, oh, well, will they like this book? Like, will they have the same hook that I experienced when I first encountered the text, right? And so it does ask us to think about perspective. And so we're thinking about considering the text based from students' interest. That's really us thinking about their taking of the text and how they accept it, and also how they respond to it. So that we're thinking like, okay, this book here, they'll connect because it has the themes of struggle or independence, or themes about resilience, and then those kind of things like really get them hooked onto a text, right? Yeah, Jesse. And if you have your hand raised virtually, I have to click the up and down because I can't see everybody. So
Oh,
my
yeah.
apologies if I miss you.
It's okay. Just really quickly, throwing this out there.
Sure.
When you're whenever this is for everybody, when you're trying to gauge like student interest on what they want to read, once you gain, the interest of what they are interested in, what they want to read, how do you then go about like narrowing down which text to select? Like if if they're into something, completely, I don't know, I want to say random, and it's like, all right, where am I going to find a book on this, or where am I going to find something on, like, what's then happens to that process afterwards? I mean, do you pull from something you've already taught before, or do you just try something completely fresh? Because I guess what I'm asking is, like, in the classroom when I start, it's like, all right, what are you guys into? What do you want to read? What's interesting you right now? And you get some pushback and not many answers. Where do you then go when your feedback isn't either the strongest, or you just don't have a clear idea of where to go after you get their interest? Because I feel like I've come into that problem myself. It's like, well, I don't know what to talk about this trimester.
Okay. Anybody want to respond? Any takers?
I think it depends on what we're doing. If we're reading like short stories, or if I'm going into like informational or expository, basically. But I have found Newsella to be very helpful ever since we've gotten it. Even before not having the subscription to Newsella, I would use it. I would use the free version, and I would take advantage of the articles. But that has helped a lot. And in terms of short stories, it's just stories that I guess I've like titles of stories that I've like taught before that get suggested. I usually have the titles sorted by theme. That kind of helps. But I think also too when I do ask students for like interest, like for their interest, like what things that they might be interested in. It just depends on how I ask. Sometimes I tend to ask like what they do outside of the school, any hobbies that they might have, anything that they might want to pursue, and I just kind of, pull from there.
Okay, cool. Thank you. Yeah, I'm definitely going to bring back Newsella as we come back into the classroom. I kind of gave it a little hiatus after our first couple of trimesters, but I want to get back into it.
Yeah, and to to address your question, I think for me there is the tendency to lean on what I think what has been working for me in the classroom. But of course, that's based on, well, what shows me that it's working? Is it work submission? Is it that they're reading out loud without me asking? Like, what's the evidence it shows me? But I think that's where, I mean, and this probably happens just over time. You kind of narrow down your library of books or stories or poems that that you're going to use. But for me, I also like the idea of trying something new of a book, and that's my hope for this school year. Like, what's my new book I'm going to teach for the school year? Because that's like what I want to do. But also being selective, like, well, what's the book about? What are the main themes? Okay, that seems to be the themes I typically cover in class. Cool. This new book might just work with my students, right? A lot to kind of consider here. Yeah, thanks for the feedback. So yeah, so what all this boils down to is this here in front of you. So as Jesse pointed out earlier, these are the depth and complexity icons that you can use in the classroom to essentially give students the lens in which to see the text that you're asking them to read. For the most part, we have books, stories, poems, and we want to find out if they're reading. One, if they're reading, are they comprehending the text? Are they able to go beyond the text? Are they able to connect the text, to other experiences? Like, what's happening with that text in your class when students are reading it, right? And for the most part, we probably know that we have different ways to ask for the comprehension. One could be a simple question of like, character A stepped into this room. What did he say? And then student just kind of looks at in the text and just kind of regurgitates, right? But then we have questions that ask more probing details, like, character A said this. What does that imply about his personality, right? So we have ways we can try to pry into their learning of a text. But these icons are pretty much a way to build some common language where students are looking at the same text, but from their levels, and they're being able to dig through and dig deep to try to get better with analysis and comprehension. And then with that, they try to become better experts in that book you're teaching or the themes you're teaching in the classroom. So you have what's called language of the discipline, details, patterns, rules, trends, unanswered questions, ethics, big idea, relate over time, multiple perspectives, and across disciplines, okay? And what I've done is I tried this in the classroom 2 years ago because I came across it around that 2 years ago in the summer, some conference I went to. And I came across, I thought, wow, this is pretty cool. Like, I think probably for any one of us who teach reading, we probably do something in the classroom that is asking students to, analyze like symbolism or to be able to relate to other themes. But these icons, I thought it's simple. Like, you're asking students, for example, you have details and you have a flower, and essentially it's asking students to look at the details of a text, right? You have a book and you want to teach about the language of the discipline. Maybe you're trying to focus on a unit where you want them to learn the language of a discipline. So maybe if it's a history class, what kind of keywords should they be learning in the context of where you're teaching, right? If you're teaching, for example, World War II, is some of the language of that discipline that you want them to learn. The terms like Hiroshima, nuclear bomb, like what is that's being taught? If it's English, will it be symbolism, personification, metaphor? So these pretty much give teachers choices for how they want to teach a text, but it shows students how to read more deep in the text as well. So brief background, this goes into helping students become experts of the knowledge of content they're learning. And it's supposed to kind of differentiate between kind of like basic level understanding and into a more expertise approach to some kind of content. And this comes from these two, I think they're linguists, blanking their names, where they kind of interview professionals to find out what is it that makes you a professional at what you do. And they said, well, we're good because we've learned how to look at patterns, how to understand the rules of my career, considering ethical dilemmas of my career, the vocabulary that helps me to get better at what I do. So then the linguists took that and just made these into icons to help students kind of become experts as well. So that hopefully with these tools, they can move beyond the classroom and bring those analysis skills with them. Okay. I think after this is a quick little demonstration, but before I do that, do we have any questions about these icons?
Man, it's useful. Okay, let me transfer it, okay? I'm looking forward to like rules for poetry, for example, different from the rules for expository writing. And then, yeah, no, really digging it. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, of course. So let me see, I think, yeah.
When you use these, Mario, are you like, or anybody else that's using them, are you like reading text and then asking the young people to maybe draw those symbols in places?
Yes, because what I've done in the past is when I've introduced these icons, and you know what, I'll just kind of jump ahead. Maybe it makes sense to show you what I've done in the classroom. So hopefully you can see this. So I have these icon posters, which is, let me actually take out the plastic, but I put them in the classroom as a reference point to students, but also once I've introduced some of the icons, because we have a total, what's that, 11? That one time I did try this, I didn't do all the icons. I thought, well, that's a lot. I don't know if I can just throw out these icons. I kind of picked the ones that I felt would be like the most useful, but they can also be transferable to other disciplines. So I think I used language of the discipline, details, patterns, and multiple perspectives, I believe. And so what I had in the classroom were these posters, really like beautiful, rich posters that shows the icon and provides guiding questions for both teacher and students. So that if you're a teacher, you want to look at the big idea of a text, you have a question, which I don't know if you can see it, but what is the key idea, theory, or principle? And that's something you can help students to kind of like learn how to answer that as they're engaged with the text. Multiple perspectives. Again, we have these guiding questions at the bottom for both teachers and students. How do different people view the topic? So let's say you're in science and you're teaching the topic of the ethics of animal testing or something. That's a great way to get students to ask, well, what's perspective from the point of view of like animal rights advocates versus those who are not? So these icons, again, even though it's not supposed to be English specific, but it's meant to help students just really draw connections. So I had these in my class. I had like all like 10, like nicely taped. And I also use these magnets, which let me try to open this. And I just got this shipment this weekend, so my apologies for not opening it sooner. But these magnets are cool because then once you've kind of introduced the icons and you've kind of decided that you're going to choose maybe 3 or 4 to focus on, then you can decide to kind of devote a lesson where they walk in and you say, all right, guys, and these are magnets for your whiteboard. You say, cool, for today, we're going to focus on details. And you use these to reinforce the focus of study for that day, right? Or if once you feel comfortable and you feel students have kind of got the gist of how this works, you can then assign groups and have one group look at details of a certain text, while another group looks at the language of the discipline, and another group looks at the patterns of the text. But of course, these things, you can't just launch it at them. You have to introduce it and kind of maybe have to show them like, what is patterns? What are we looking for when we look at patterns in the text and so forth? Or when we talk about the trends, what are the trends we see happening in the text? But again, these magnets, I use them. So in class, I just put them on the whiteboard and they knew that would be the focus for the day. And to be honest, sometimes I spend more than one day just focusing on that one icon until I felt that they kind of got a pretty good grasp of that icon. And then lastly here, this I did not have last year or 2 years ago because it wasn't available, but it seems like this is kind of gaining traction with teachers. So I think they kind of like release more of these resources, and some of this is actually bilingual. So some of it is in Spanish, which is pretty awesome, which was not available before. Look at this box cutter here. But they have these other cards that are available for both teachers and students that provide more guiding questions for the particular icon that you're trying to have your students master. Just give me a second here. Good shrink wrap. Wow. All right, so here's the card. And on the back, you have kind of like a scaffolding idea for teachers, but that can be used for students as well. That shows them what are the skills that are targeting for that icon, as well as like the actual target areas that you want to do in your class. So for, I know it's probably really hard to see and I apologize, but let's say you have this card, language of the discipline, and on the back you have how that pertains to language arts, mathematics, social studies, and science. And these can just give you further ideas to how to use icons in classroom. Again, not that I use it, but I can see how this can be really helpful to help me scaffold activities for classroom instruction. So in this slideshow, toward the bottom, there's a slide that provides a special request form that's kind of pre-filled out. All you got to do is just put your name, the date you want these by, send them to your principal, or sorry, send them to staff request, CC your principal, and then and just kind of put the quantity. There's more on the website, but I think these would be like, I feel like the more they'd be like the more useful in the classroom. So 11:46, I got about 20 minutes. So what I'll do, I was gonna have us do like an activity, but in lieu of time, I'm just kind of gonna show you the quick demo here. And this is a demo that was done or given to us when I attended this PD session or this PD in Torrance. So I'm just pretty much replicating this exact same demo. The choice of text was just really to try to get people to talk about something we kind of already read about, but it does alienate those who have not read the story before, and in particular students who are not born here probably. But this quick demo is basically using the icons by after having read Three Little Pigs. So just to keep us on the same ground here, do we know the story of this fable? We know like what happens, how it starts, climax, how it ends. Like I don't want to assume, but we know this story. Yeah. Okay. All right. So in case you don't, there's a link there. It gives you the actual like version where the wolf actually gets boiled to death. But what happened here is because teachers in the group had already read or knew the story of Three Little Pigs, we then were asked to look at the icons. So for example, if we've taught reading or we taught text, we probably know that, we maybe show students to look for patterns. So if we have a lesson which you're trying to show students how to analyze a character, maybe some of the things we do is ask students to look closely at the behavior, things being said over and over, that helps us to get a better characterization of the person. So Three Little Pigs, you have three siblings. One's lazy, one's half lazy, half not lazy. The other one is like not lazy at all. One builds a house out of what is it? Straw. One out of something light, I can't remember. And then one out of bricks, right? And then what happens is the big bad wolf comes over and he blows the first two houses because they were not made strong enough. But then on the third house, which is made out of bricks, he's unsuccessful and then climbs to the roof, tries to get the pig through there. But then that's where like a cauldron of boiling water is there to like burn them. But in the story, you probably remember that there's repetition. And the wolf says, like I'll huff and I'll puff and I'll blow your house down, right? And that's where if you have a text that you're teaching and you want them to look at patterns, then you're asking students to look at that detail, right? The ethics here, like of the story, Three Little Pigs, which is supposed to be like a moral teaching kind of story, would be something like, you know, don't be lazy, work hard, like the two first pigs were not successful doing, and be, you know, be relentless. So this activity here is my attempt to actually do this. And I actually saved it from 2 years ago because I knew I gotta show this to teachers. So in person, this would go, the flow will be a lot better. But basically this is like what we did to get familiar with the icons. And I want to say that after today, I could probably throw this away because now I can say I finally introduced depth and complexity. But really this this demo lesson is just one way to use the icons in your classroom. There's a lot of approaches you can do with this. If it's something that you feel could work for you, maybe just pick one or two icons for your class. You pick one, that, or you focus on one and see how that goes. And then from there, pick other ones. Okay. Any questions of anything about these icons, about teaching depth and complexity? Because I also have, in the slideshow, I have also what I use in my class. So I'll provide you with the slideshow I use in that class. So in other words, the book I used for depth and complexity was Erika's Journey. And I have a slideshow for that I use in the classroom. I'm also including an example of a summative assessment in which a student used details to look for details in the book. And also in the slideshow, I have a link to, I think a separate activity of a student who did a different icon analysis. And it's just my attempt to share you with what I did. And by all means, feel free to take those ideas and make them far, far, far more better, okay? Which is right here. So, okay. So what does depth and complexity do for you, for students? It helps them find voice in their literary analysis. But for that, we can also add that this helps students find voice in analysis with science articles, historical narratives as well. It helps to differentiate learning. So it does help to allow students to access the content from their levels by using these icons as a shared language to still talk about the content, but from their respective language levels. It empowers reading skills. It shows students that you can actually pick up details in the text if you're kind of shown how to look for these details in the text, for how to look for patterns, how to understand like that this one book you're teaching relates to this other topic in another discipline. It creates common ground for students to discuss the text. It helps increase engagement, and it does help to decrease inattention because again, you're purposely giving students a hook that they're using to deconstruct the text. And also it builds confidence for students. Chat box. I'm so sorry. I thought it was accessible. Thank you, Joey. See, I'm always forgetting to click. It's like, okay, I promise I'll fix that. Okay, so already said this. So in the slideshow, which I guess you can't access, but I'll make it accessible, is a sample student handout that's completed for you to see how one student completed one of the icons, the slideshow that I used for that class 2 years ago. Why does it do that? Sorry, folks. A summative assessment, which is really an APT. I think it was the first APT of two that a student did as a slideshow, and I think he chose patterns and language of this discipline. And then further reading some other websites that I thought could be helpful for you if you want to look more into this depth and complexity. And furthermore, here is pretty much like the request form. You just click on that, it's pre-filled out. But I would encourage you to check out the website and see like what else is there that you think could be useful in the classroom. Okay. Questions, thoughts, comments, anything?
I was going to say, I think it's a great idea to use that chart. I think I was thinking of it more as something we could do as a class assignment. Everyone make a little chart, put 4 things in the boxes, the name of the book in the middle, and then as a class, we fill it in, like to get them used to what could go in there. So they could see there's no wrong answer so much, but you know what I mean? I think, like you said, it lets all learners can join in. They can say something to go in one box to feel part of it. And then in the end, even though they may like copy down other people's answers, they all have something filled out like, wow, look what we did. But it does help them break down the text, get into it, learn the language, identify perspective. Like if you're talking about different characters, what is their view of the issue? What is the other person's view? So I like it. I could totally see myself using it, you know, to compound just reading, because we do a lot of reading and discussion, and I have a hard time finding what can I make them do to prove they learned something. So in lieu of just comprehension questions or a discussion, I will use something like this for sure. And I think it'd be done quick. It's something they can do in a class time and turn it in too, if we do it together. Thank you.
He said a lot of keywords just said, I'm already blanking because my mind's thinking of like 20 things, but yeah, it does help for students to see there's no wrong answer because they're just seeing the same text, but from their respective levels of experience in learning and reading, whether they're proficient learners or not proficient English learners, but they're talking about the same text. And also it does give teachers an alternative to 10 questions that students have to answer. Like, okay, we read this awesome short story by Stephen Crane. Awesome. Here's some 10 questions. It's like, that's fine too. But I mean, maybe consider this to help to balance the learning, but also give more empowerment to students to see that, you know, when it comes to reading, often the stigma is, oh, you got to answer these questions. Oh my gosh. Or you do this and you make it fun for them and have them be the owners and the agents of their learning. And I think that's where the confidence builds for them. Oh, thanks, Adam. Any other questions or comments? Anything?
When you use this, Mario, did you break down each icon by like week so that it can,
Good question. So what I did, I said, okay, I'm not going to focus on all the icons. I was like, I feel that's too much. But of course, I relied on my experience. I thought, well, what are things that I have done in the past that I've asked them to do when we read fiction, plays, or nonfiction? And that's when I settled for like details, the big idea, but especially patterns, because that's something I found that if I'm teaching a play, and for example, I love to teach Raising the Sun, there's a lot you can do to help students study the patterns of the characters in the play. But I chose like, I think 4 or 5. And what I did is I did do that. I kind of did 1 per week. And from there, tried to do like, okay, we've covered these 4 icons. And once I got a sense, I think they kind of understood it, then that's where I freely chose a random icon for the week for them to focus on. But that's what I did. Yeah, I just picked a few and then did 1 per week to kind of like ease it into the students. But I do want to say that the textbook, at first I thought, well, maybe it's complex, and that's something to think about as a teacher, that what, if you're going to do this, probably do it with a book or a text or a story set, whatever, that you've already done before. That way you kind of know how to navigate the learning, because the learning curve is on the teachers to kind of navigate these icons and kind of gauge the discussion in the classroom. But that's something to consider too as a teacher, that if these icons are also meant to help break down the complex text, then that's something that you can think about down the line if you feel comfortable doing these icons and you want to like do it again for a different class. But I would suggest that if you want to implement it, probably do it with something you've taught already. That way you get like some kind of familiarity with these icons before you do something completely new, or you just redo the same book with the same icons, or you just kind of maybe at your sites, share this with your teachers. Maybe you are teaching like two subjects and this makes sense for like an English and science you're teaching, or it's something that even staff members at respective sites might benefit from having. Yeah. Anything else? Cool. So for the English teachers, but everybody else, feel free to chime in. Not something you have to answer now, but I do want to know, and I sincerely would like to know, what are ideas, or God, this keeps happening. What are some things you want to do in a department? Like what are, something that you feel, hey, we should try this, let's do this. Like what ideas you want to put forward? What's going to happen is by Friday, there will be a Google form that's going to ask for your feedback. But this in particular, I'm really, really hoping you can just let me know what you're thinking about, of an idea we can do as a department. We have in our own words, the student journal, we have resonance, but I'm sure there's more we can do. And hopefully the collaboration that comes from the teachers will help us to be creative with how we want to rock out in this school year. Okay. Aside from that, put on your calendar, optional, because there's so much I want to cover and there's never enough time. But August 20th, which is a Friday, I'm going to provide another kind of like a PD breakout session that is not part of this PD, but it's an effort to respond to some of the survey feedback that some of you gave me back in May about what we can talk about in August. So this topic of today was a response to some teachers who said they're looking for ways to engage students, look at ways to assess reading. So I thought, cool, let me show them depth and complexity, which had been on my reserves for 2 years. But beyond that, there was other survey feedback regarding technology in the classroom, writing ideas. So if you're interested, be on the lookout for an email from me. That's gonna ask for your best availability for that Friday. It might be like from 12 to 12:45 or 12:30 to 1:15. Like, just kind of give me the time available, and then from there we'll meet again, and I'll be able to then like share more things with you based on the survey feedback. Or if you want to talk more about depth and complexity, we can. But basically, you want to throw it out there that I would love to see you guys again, but it's totally optional. You guys have a lot to do your sites, staff meetings, and who knows what else. So if you don't make it, not a big deal. But this one I will record it so that I can make available for others in case if we kind of end up doing like new idea sharing. And the chat box says, cool. What you got here, sir?
Just an invitation. As when she said August 20th, I was like, oh yeah, let me invite, starting a retreat, brainstorming retreat, and would love to have our community involved. You can be there in person or you can come online. It's in Joshua Tree. We're talking about creating compassionate communities, eco villages, places where people can find community and find rest and live, live in a space that's safe and full of joy and freedom. And none of us are experts, but we have great ideas from our friend. Oh, So wonderful to be talking to this group. Our friend Jenny Crane will be there from San Diego YouthBuild with Rebuilding Green and the tiny home movement. People that I've had in our classroom, like Dominique Moody, creator of the Nomad, which is in front of the California African American Museum, talking about ADUs, accessory dwelling units, and the pyropod food growing units. So yeah, we'd love to have students writing collectively ideas of what would make a, sustainable society that's full of equity and safety and love.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks for the invite, man. Much appreciation to you. Thank you. Cool. All right. Anything else? We're good. All right. Once again, thank you for coming today. I appreciate every single one of you. You're awesome teachers. Yeah, let me know if you have questions about today's resource. And I'm going to fix that slideshow on Schoology. That way is accessible. And yeah, enjoy lunch. Right now it's lunch until 1:05, I believe. And at 1:05 is, my bad. At 1 p.m. is a social studies breakout with Shu. And then a science breakout after that with the college fair happening concurrently. And then later today, Anthony and I will talk about APT documents. So peace out, y'all. Thank you. Have a great lunch. Be safe. Take care.